White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was pressed by a reporter on President Biden's own history with sexual harassment allegations in a follow-up question regarding Governor Andrew Cuomo. Let's watch.
President Biden was accused by female Secret Service agents of skinny dipping in front of them, offending them, according to former Washington Post reporter Ronald Kessler, who's an author as well. His former Senate aide Tara Reid accused him of sexual assault. The Washington Post and the New York Times have published multiple accounts of women who objected to the way President Biden touched them. Should there be an independent investigation of allegations into the president, as there was into Governor Cuomo?
Well, first I would say the president has been clear and outspoken about the importance of women being respected and having their voices heard and being allowed to tell their stories and people treating them with respect. That has long been his policy, continues to be his policy. That was heavily litigated during the campaign. I understand you're eager to come back to it, but I don't have anything further other than to repeat that he has called for the governor to resign.
Team Rising is here to weigh in. Roger Fisk is a Democratic strategist and Obama administration alum. Lauren Tomlinson is a Republican strategist and former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Strategic Communications and Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. Roger, I'm going to start with you. Was this heavily litigated?
First off, good morning, Kim, and it's wonderful to join Rachel and Lauren. I mean, for the most part, I would say yes. There's a huge gulf between the Cuomo situation, which is now the product of an attorney general, doing a formal investigation. We all know, I mean, the name of the Senate staffer accuser was just used. There's I don't think there's any shroud of mystery around any of these things. I think they've been well ventilated. The courts or law enforcement are wide open to any of these individuals should they wish to pursue, legal means. So the president definitely comes from a different era, which is to say that he, even around me, is it's got more of a physical approach to kind of traditional retail politics. But I have said this before on this show. I've never detected a scintilla of malice or intent or any kind of appetite behind any of the way that he conducts himself. So my sense, both in my personal observations and from looking at it through the lens of just a news analysis, is that these have been well ventilated. And if there was any there, we would have a situation that was much further along.
So, Lauren, I'd put the same question to you because, we were kind of talking before this segment, was it? There was sort of a media blackout. There wasn't a lot of necessarily attention paid to this. If you look at how allegations are treated against other big public officials, I'm not quite sure it got the same amount of coverage, but I don't know. What's your take?
My take is that I don't understand why we treat any of these guys any differently. All politicians across any party, because any of these accusations, they do deserve independent review. They deserve more than just a cursory look by the media. It's not the media's job to decide if these allegations are true or false. We need to have actual law enforcement, an independent counsel look at any of these. And I would say that across the board. President Trump is a good example. The voters forgave him for that, but it still wasn't okay with all of the accusations that he had. President Biden needs to have a full review of this. And I'm glad that, at least what's happening with Governor Cuomo, we're seeing, a public official be held to account for what he's done, because I don't buy these video responses, like President Biden did during the campaign where he said, oh, it was a different error. I didn't mean it like that. It still made these women uncomfortable. And so regardless of the intent and regardless of what was acceptable back then, it's not okay now. And it shouldn't have been okay then. It's just people didn't have the strength to say what they say now. And so, I don't buy all of these guys coming out and saying that, oh, it's been litigated before. Oh, the voters spoke. I can't believe that sometimes the voters look the other way on this. And, somehow they do. I think sometimes it's you choose between the lesser evil. But I do think that everybody deserves a very strong look from independent counsels. And, if I was President Biden, I would be welcoming this, because if there was nothing there, as, the press secretary mentioned, if there is nothing to be seen here, have the review, let the results come out, let everybody look at it, and then you can finally move on from it.
I think Andrew Cuomo thought that was going to happen when he told his attorney general to do the same thing, but didn't turn out quite the same way, did it? Kind of came back to bite him. Roger, I think to your point when you say, well, look, Biden doesn't have any malice behind his actions. He's a very physical person and it's generational. I think that those are all of the same sorts of, that's what Andrew Cuomo was saying as well. He's saying in his press release yesterday, he kind of said, well, maybe it's generational or cultural, even kind of pointing to his Italian heritage. We know Italians tend to be much more physical in their way of approaching people. And so how do you view these two cases side by side?
Well, to take one issue with Lauren's comments, which I very much appreciate, I always love being on with her. I think intent does matter. If, for example, then the vice president or President Biden, I don't know the dates of this situation with skinny dipping or something, was then saying like, hey, come into the cabana with me or some things like that. I mean, like the difference between having an agenda and trying to achieve something with that individual is much different than how one conducts themselves just with people in general. If I trust you can see the difference. I mean, if he's trying to bring this person down the road and groom them into a situation where they are compromised or anything like that, to just act in a way that is more physical than what some people are possibly used to, I do think intent very much matters, because I think if President Biden had an agenda in those interactions and was trying to usher that individual into a situation where there was intimate interaction, then that is what we would be discussing right now.
I'm going to jump in. I love being on with you too, Roger. You're so fun. But I'm going to completely disagree with that, because what we're talking about is more workplace harassment and not necessarily rape, right? So the intent does matter here, or whatever the intent is, because he made these women feel very uncomfortable, all of these men. And so regardless of, whether it led to sexual interaction or it crossed the line into rape. I mean, I've been in situations at work where probably well-meaning older gentlemen have commented on my legs in front of a business meeting. And that completely undermines my ability to deliver the counsel that I need to deliver if I've been reduced to my legs. And I think that's part of the conversation that we're having here, is that, regardless of where the guy's intents are on this, it very much needs to be called out. And, you can't say that it's cultural or it's from a different generation. That's not the world that we're living in today.
Roger, why is it, when you look at the Joe Biden situation and you look at the Andrew Cuomo situation, these allegations were made, and I think in Cuomo's case, there was a lot of other allegations being made about, handling COVID-19, preferencing his family for COVID tests, all these other things. But it almost seems that when you reach favored son status, there's hesitancy from the media, there's hesitancy from the party to sort of jump in and actually examine what's happening. Why do you think it's taken so long for leading Democrats to come out and tell Andrew Cuomo to step down?
Well, to get back to my original point, I think it's the difference between having accusations floated in the media, having a former Senate staffer say things that were debunked in some circles, possibly not in others, and then having an attorney general issue like a 110-page report or whatever. I mean, that I think is the difference, right? Like to put it in through essentially kind of a forensic investigation where these people, I'm assuming, were under some kind of oath or deposed in some fashion or another. That just formalizes it much more. So we can have anecdotes flying around in various newspapers and anything else, but people tend to change their tune when they get into a formal legal situation and they're being asked things under oath. So that's why I think the seismic kind of tidal change around Governor Cuomo happened, because it's not just something in the New York Post or something, bouncing around, some particular constituency online. It's an attorney general producing maybe not indictments, but at least kind of an official investigation. And that just packages it all into one narrative, obviously. But then it's the product of, kind of law enforcement analysis and things like that. So it makes it a much different situation with much more weight behind it, because it's not just chatter on some news site or some stray accusation or something. That's my sense of it.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate your input.
Thank you.
All right, Matt Stoller joins us next to weigh in on a dispute between NYU researchers and Facebook. That's coming up next.